Hi, I'm Connor Barnes, and I'm going to be talking to you guys today about the social media site Reddit. So, just an overview of my presentation. First, I'm going to be talking to you guys about what Reddit is and kind of what makes it different than other social media websites. Then, I'm going to be talking to you guys about censorship and how Reddit deals with what content is allowed, what content isn't allowed, and who decides that, as well as how they monitor and remove content that is violating their rules. Then I'm going to talk to you guys about various social movements that have taken place on Reddit and how these are different than social movements that happen on other social media websites. So, to start, I'm going to be talking to you guys about what is Reddit. And so Reddit is a social media website, and people can post text, images, videos, and links. People can then comment on other people's posts, and they can comment on other people's comments as well. Users can also upvote and downvote posts and comments. This is different than a lot of social media websites, which only allow upvoting, such as on Facebook. You can like a post, but there's no disliking a post, where on Reddit, you can upvote and downvote posts and comments. And so now I'm going to talk to you about the posts on Reddit. So this is an example of what you might see if you go onto Reddit. You can see here 5 different posts are shown. You can see a photo post, a link, a GIF, a video, and a text post. And now we're going to look at this text post a little more in depth. So first you can see most prominently is the title of the post. So here it says, in Michigan, I've seen several people camped out in the parking lots of grocery stores selling things like toilet paper and Lysol wipes at ridiculous prices. Can I call the cops on them for price gouging? And so the title will just give you some information. So in here they're asking a question. Then you can see the community that this was posted to. So here they posted this to Legal Advice, which is a community where people can post questions about legal advice. So here they're asking whether they can call the cops on these people, and people will respond giving them advice. Next, you can see the net upvotes, and this is essentially just the number of upvotes minus the amount of downvotes. Then you can see the number of comments that there are for this post. And then you can see how long ago this post was posted. So, for example, this post was posted 4 hours ago. Now, when you click on the post, you will see a bit more information. So you can still see the title at the top, but then you can also see if they've added any additional text. If this was a photo, you'd see the photo here. A video, you'd see the video. If it was a link, it would take you directly to the internet, to that link, etc. But here, this is a text post, so you can see the text. Then you can see the community and username given. So you can see that it was posted in Legal Advice, and the username was generic white male. And then you can see the stats for this post. So here you can see how many people upvoted it. The smiley face indicates the ratio of people who upvoted it to downvoted it. So here 96% of the people who either upvoted or downvoted this post upvoted it, which means it's fairly popular. And then you can also see again that it was posted 4 hours ago. Now on this post, you can choose to upvote it, or you can also downvote it. And then below, you can see all the comments. So here you can see, just scrolling through, there's been a lot of comments, which is very typical for Reddit. And now we're going to look at a comment more in depth. So looking at this comment here, you can see it's highlighted. You can see the username for who posted this comment. Here it's Mr. Wiggles. And then you can see the text, what he posted. So in comments, they're always text. You can still post links here. So if you want to post a comment with a photo, you can just post a link to a photo or video, etc. but usually the comments are just text. Then you can see how many people have upvoted this specific comment. Here it's 21. And again, this is the net upvotes, so that's the number of upvotes minus downvotes. So sometimes this can be negative for an unpopular comment, for example. And then you can see that it was posted 45 minutes ago. And so that's what a comment looks like. And again, you can upvote comments as well. You can also downvote comments, just like you can with posts. And now I'm going to talk about how Reddit is different than other social media websites. So for one, Reddit is a lot more anonymous than other social media websites, and I'll talk about that more in another slide. I'm also going to talk about how Reddit is different in how it's very community focused. The site is split into a bunch of different communities called subreddits. I'm also going to talk about how commenting is different on Reddit. It's a lot more abundant on Reddit than it is on other sites. And also how Reddit displays its content to users is different than most other social media websites. So first I'm going to talk about anonymity. So to start with, which is very apparent that is different than a lot of other social media like Facebook and Twitter, is that there are only usernames. There's no display names. So on other sites such as Facebook and Instagram, you make a username that's unique to you, but you can also set a display name, which is usually your full name, or it might be the name of a company or organization. But on Reddit, it only shows usernames. There's nowhere for you to input a display name. Further, while it is possible to follow other users and have them as friends, it's very uncommon and isn't really how the site works. So you cannot see other people's followers, and you can't see who is following you. You also can't see who has upvoted or downvoted your posts. And this is different compared to social media sites such as Reddit and Instagram, where you can see who has upvoted and downvoted your posts, and you can see who follows you. And so this makes Reddit a lot more anonymous, as it's a lot less connecting with your friends and a lot more about reading posts and commenting on posts to people you don't even know. Further, there's no verification system. So for celebrities who have accounts, there's no way to see whether it's whether it's verified or not. So if you go on Twitter, for example, and you look at Elon Musk's Twitter account, you'll see a blue check mark next to it showing that it's verified, that this in fact is Elon Musk. Reddit has no such feature, so there's no way of knowing whether an account belongs to a celebrity or not. Now there are ways to get around this. So a lot of times when celebrities do post, they will post photographic proof. For example, they'll post a picture of them holding up a piece of holding up a piece of paper with their Reddit username on it. Or they might post on their verified Twitter page, for example, and say, hey, this is my Reddit username. You can know that that actually is in fact me. Now I want to show you what a user profile looks like, and you can see it's a lot more basic than other sites. At the top, it displays the username. In this case, I'm showing you Bill Gates' user profile. You can see some stats. You can see comment karma and post karma. Karma is essentially what you accumulate for getting upvotes on your posts and comments. The more upvotes you get and the fewer downvotes you get, the more karma you get. And you can also see the account age. So for example, this account was created 7 years and 5 months ago. Then you can also go through and view all the posts this user has made and all the comments this user has made. At the bottom, there's some other miscellaneous information you can view, but I'm not going to go into that as it's not necessarily very important. Now, it's very apparent that there's a lot of stuff missing from this that other social media sites have. So there's no display name, as I went over earlier. The username is "This is Bill Gates," so you can kind of assume that it might be related to Bill Gates, but there's no name field. There's nowhere that it says Bill Gates. There's also no followers or follower counts, so you can't see who's following this user. There's no profile picture either. And there's no verified checkmark to show that this is a verified account. This actually is Bill Gates' account, but there's no way of knowing that from just viewing his user profile. You'd have to go out and find proof yourself. Now I want to talk about the different communities on Reddit, which are called subreddits. So the site is divided into a bunch of different communities, thousands of them actually, and they're called subreddits. And anyone can create a subreddit. As long as it doesn't already exist, you can create a subreddit for anything you'd like. And subreddits can range from very small to very large. There's subreddits that have just a dozen or less active users, and there are subreddits that also have millions of active users. So there's a lot of variety in the different subreddits. And when a post is submitted to Reddit, it's submitted to a specific subreddit. There's no way of just submitting a post to Reddit. You have to choose a subreddit to post it to. So for example, if you wanted to post a picture of your dog, you'd have to choose a subreddit that a picture of a dog might fit well under. So for example, you could submit it to the subreddit r/pics, which is a subreddit for just any pictures. Or you could also submit it to a more specific subreddit like r/dogs, which is just for pictures of dogs. But it's your choice. You can submit it to multiple subreddits if you'd like. But you have to choose at least one subreddit to post it to. And so subreddits, there's a whole bunch of different types of subreddits. So there's subreddits that are just about a specific type of content and are very broad. So for example, r/pics, like I just mentioned, is a site where you can post any picture that you'd like. So here you can see there's some pictures of dogs, there's some pictures of grocery stores running out of items, but any picture you can post here. There's r/videos, which is the same but for videos, and there's r/gifs, which are for submitting GIFs. Then there are subreddits that are based around some location. So for example, r/Italy is a subreddit that is just anything related to Italy. So this could be people just talking about Italian politics. It could be posting news articles related to Italy. It could be posting pictures of Italy. It can be anything about Italy. Then there's also some smaller ones. For example, most US states have their own subreddit, like California here. And you can get down even to a lot of individual cities have their own subreddits. So here, for example, Paris has its own subreddit, and this would just be information related to Paris. Then there are also interest-based subreddits. So for example, r/gaming is a subreddit where people can just talk about video games and post questions. They can post pictures of new games. They can post articles, whatever they want about video games. There's r/programming for people who are interested in programming. And there's r/cooking for people who can post recipes, can ask questions about cooking, etc. Whole bunch of interest-based subreddits. There are also a lot of educational subreddits. So a very popular one, for example, is called Today I Learned, which is people who can just post a bunch of different facts that other people might not have known. So for example, one of the posts here says, "Today I learned old books have a peculiar smell due to the lining being present in the paper. Lignin is related to vanillin, leading them to have a faint vanilla scent." So that's a fact that most people don't know. And if you were on this subreddit, you could learn a bunch of facts like that one. There's also Ask Science, where people post questions and people can reply with scientific answers. So for example, is COVID-19 transmissible through mosquitoes? And if you'd click that, there'd be people responding on whether or not it was in fact transmissible. And on this subreddit, people are expected to provide evidence. So whether that is linking to journal articles or linking to other articles and whatnot. But it's very science focused. And here people can just post questions to learn about anything related to science. Then there's also a subreddit called Smarter Every Day, which is a subreddit about just general learning. So people here can post videos about teaching for different things. People can post questions. People can post articles, etc. And there's a lot of other educational subreddits out there as well. There's also a lot of news subreddits. r/news is just general news, but it generally focuses mainly on US news, mainly just because a large percentage of the people who use Reddit are from the United States. There's also r/technology, which is dedicated to news about technology. And then there's r/world news, which is also just any general news, but tries to be a little less focused on the United States. So on world news, you'd find more news related to Europe and Asia and other locations as well. There's also a lot of political subreddits that you can find. r/politics is a general political subreddit, mainly, again, focused on US politics. Then you can also find subreddits for specific candidates. For example, r/Sanders for President is a subreddit about the US presidential candidate Bernie Sanders. And so this subreddit would just be people talking about his campaign. And this subreddit is primarily for supporters of his campaign. And so here people can discuss things about him. And another subreddit example is r/libertarian, which is a subreddit for people who have libertarian political views, and they can post articles and have discussions about their political views in that subreddit. There's also a lot of activism subreddits. So, for example, r/badcopnodonut is a subreddit that raises awareness about police brutality. And so here people will post articles and videos about police brutality. There's a lot of videos that show brutal videos of basically police beating up citizens and whatnot unjustly. And it's mainly for raising awareness about the police brutality issues. There's also r/Hong Kong, which is a subreddit that is devoted to talking about the protests in Hong Kong and the democracy in Hong Kong and how that's being taken away by mainland China. And another activism subreddit is r/environment, where there's a lot of articles posted about how the environment is changing and is being impacted through climate change and other issues such as trash in oceans, plastic, and whatnot. And then, of course, there's also a bunch of other subreddits that don't fall into any of these categories. For example, r/AskReddit is a subreddit where people post a question and other people on the site reply in the comments answering their question. So, for example, what is the first thing you'll do once everything goes back to normal? And so here, people would post replies about what they're going to do after the coronavirus has ended and life is back to normal. And you can get a lot of interesting responses here. There's also r/howyoudooin', which is a subreddit, excuse me, which is a subreddit about the show Friends. And there's a bunch of other subreddits for different TV shows, different artists, stuff like that. And then another subreddit is r/funny, which is just a subreddit where people can post anything they find funny. And so there's a bunch of other subreddits like this that just don't fall really into any of the previous categories. But like I said, there's thousands of subreddits, so certainly too many to list here. Now I want to talk about the comments on Reddit and how the commenting system on Reddit is very different from other sites. So comments are much more prevalent on Reddit. It's not uncommon to find posts that have tens of thousands of comments on them. And it's not rare even that comments will be rated higher than the post itself, especially on subreddits such as Ask Reddit or Ask Science, where really the post itself doesn't carry any significance. It's the answers that people provide in the comments that make it what it is. And there are a lot of subreddits for discourse like these, but there are also a lot of subreddits that are just kind of echo chambers. So you'll find these on a lot of political subreddits where you will only find comments with people with the same political views, and this can lead to a lot of echo chambers occurring on the website. And now I also want to talk about how Reddit chooses to display its contents to people, which again is very different than other social media sites. So when you log onto Reddit, you subscribe to different subreddits that you're interested in, and you will only be shown posts from your subscribed subreddits. So if you're only subscribed to, for example, Today I Learned and Pics, you will only see posts from those two subreddits. You won't see any posts from videos or from Bad Cop No Donut or any other subreddit, no matter how popular the other posts on those subreddits are. And the post and comment order that you see is based on the following. So the age of the comment and post is important. So you're only shown content that has been posted usually within the past day, and essentially newer content is prioritized over older content. Also, the number of upvotes and downvotes determines the order that it's shown. So things with more upvotes and fewer downvotes are shown higher. And the subreddit size also plays a factor. And this is essentially just because you might be subscribed, for example, to Paris, and you also might be subscribed to Pics. And if it didn't take subreddit size into account, since r/Pics has millions of users, the average number of upvotes is way higher on Pics, that you might have to scroll through 10 pages of Pics to finally see a post from Paris. So Reddit also factors in the subreddit size so that when you're going through, you generally see equal amounts of number of posts from every subreddit. So you also see a lot of posts from the smaller subreddits you're subscribed to, as well as the larger ones. And what's interesting is what are not factors of the content that you're displayed. So your view history has no impact on what content is shown to you. So no matter how many posts you view from a specific subreddit, so say for example, again, you're subscribed to only Pics and Paris, and you only end up clicking on the posts from Paris. That won't change how many posts you're shown from Paris. You aren't going to be shown any more posts from Paris just because you click on them more, and you're not going to be shown fewer posts from Pics just because you don't view them. So your view history has no impact on what you're shown. Further, your upvote history and your downvote history play no role into the post you're shown. So, excuse me again. So for example, if you upvote every post you see on Paris and downvote every post you see on Pics, you're still going to be shown the same amount of posts from Pics and from Paris. And you also are not going to be shown more posts from users who submitted posts that have higher karma. So again, karma is basically just a number of a metric of showing how many upvotes a user has gotten. So a user that's been on the site a while and has posted a lot of popular posts still isn't going to be more likely to have their post shown above a user with lower karma who has maybe in the past posted a lot of posts that have gotten downvoted, or maybe has just not posted very many things in the past. They're both equally likely to be shown. It's only related to the age of their post and the number of upvotes and downvotes on that specific post, not on the posts they've submitted in the past. And you also aren't more likely to see content that's posted by your friends. So just because you're friends with somebody on the site doesn't mean you're going to be more likely to see their content. In fact, it's very common that you won't ever see a lot of the posts that your friends do submit because they might be submitting to subreddits that you're not subscribed to. So your friend might submit something to r/Berlin, but if you're not subscribed to the Berlin subreddit, then you won't ever see that post from them. And Reddit also allows you to customize the way that posts are shown in the way that it sorts the posts. And so the default is called best, which basically I've just explained. There's also Hot, and this is very similar to Best, but it puts a higher um, ranking on newer posts. So you're more likely to see posts that were submitted in the past hour or two. Whereas on Best, you might see a lot of posts that were posted 12, 18 hours ago, um, just because they have a lot of upvotes. But on Hot, it really prioritizes the posts that were made within the past hour or two. There's also Top, and Top is subdivided so you can see the top for the past hour, day, month, year, or top all time. And this only takes into account the number of upvotes and downvotes. It does not take time into account. And opposite to that is New, and this just sorts all the posts chronologically. So you'll see all the newest posts and comments first, and you'll see all the older ones later. There's also Rising, so you can view posts that are getting a lot of upvotes at the moment. Regardless of how many upvotes they've accumulated, it'll prioritize how many posts, or it'll prioritize the posts that are getting a lot of upvotes recently. And then there's also Controversial, which basically does not take downvotes into account. So if you're sorting by controversial, you might see a post that has a lot of downvotes and a lot of upvotes near the top. So you could see a post that has 1,000 upvotes and 1,000 downvotes ranked higher than a post that has 900 upvotes and 0 downvotes. Whereas if you were sorting by best, hot, or top, the post with a lot of downvotes would be a lot closer to the bottom. It would be way more down than the posts with primarily upvotes compared to downvotes. And so controversial and new are both very useful if you kind of want to avoid the echo chambers in Reddit, because it allows you to see a lot of comments that might get downvoted a lot by people just because someone's expressing a different opinion than they might have. And so that brings me into censorship on Reddit, which is very interesting and has a lot of ramifications. So Reddit, as all social media websites have, has a site-wide content policy, which basically is a list of rules of what you're not allowed to submit or do on the site. But also, each subreddit has their own content policies in addition to the site-wide policies. So each subreddit can add their own rules and regulations of what's allowed to post, what behavior is accepted, etc. And then I want to go into talking about moderators on the site. Moderators are basically the people who are in charge of a subreddit. And I want to talk about the privileges that moderators have and what responsibilities they have on the site. Then I also want to talk about the admins on the site, which are similar to moderators in that they moderate the content on the site, but instead admins are not associated with a specific subreddit, they're associated with the site as a whole. So admins are responsible for making sure that subreddits follow the site-wide content policy. And admins are also different from moderators in the fact that admins are paid Reddit employees, whereas moderators are community volunteers. So first I'm going to talk about the prohibited site-wide content. So what are you not allowed to post on Reddit? So the following list comes directly from the Reddit site rules. And so no one is allowed to post anything that is illegal, that is involuntary pornography, that is sexual or suggestive content involving minors, anything that encourages or incites violence, anything that threatens, harasses, or bullies or encourages others to do so, anything that is personal or confidential information, anything that impersonates an individual or entity in a misleading or deceptive manner, and anything that's spam. You're also not allowed to post things on Reddit that solicit or facilitate any transaction or gift involving the following: firearms and ammunition, drugs or controlled substances, prostitution, stolen goods, personal information, falsified official documents like fake IDs or currency, fraudulent services. So these are all the things that you're not allowed to do on Reddit, and none of these seem super surprising. None of these things are things that are allowed on other social media platforms like Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. But what is surprising is that there's a lot of things that are not listed here that are usually policies for other social media websites. So now I'm going to talk about some things that surprisingly are allowed, which a lot of other sites don't allow. So Reddit does allow pornography. It must be voluntary, though, as involuntary pornography is not allowed per the rules. It also obviously can't be of a minor, as that's illegal. And posts that have pornography in them have to be marked with a special tag called NSFW, which stands for not suitable for work. And so any post that is marked NSFW will be shown in red, and it'll be clear if you're viewing the site, if you're trying to avoid things like this, it'll be easy to avoid them. And you actually have to opt in to seeing posts that are marked as such. If you don't opt in to seeing them, then when you go on Reddit, you won't be shown any of these posts. And there are a lot of examples of this. There's a lot of subreddits for pornography, like r/porn and r/gayporn. Then also, which is surprisingly perhaps allowed on the site, is gore. It must not glorify, encourage, or call for violence, and it also must be marked NSFW. But as long as it meets these two criteria, you are allowed to submit pictures, videos, etc. that depict gore. And an example subreddit of this is r/5050, which is a subreddit which provides each post basically gives two options, one that's good and one that's bad. So, for example, the good might be a cute picture of a cat, and the bad might be, for example, someone getting run over by a car. And you don't know what you're going to see until you actually click on the post. And there's a bunch of other subreddits like this which basically show a lot of gore, and that is allowed by Reddit's content policy. You are allowed to show gore. Also, what is surprising is that bots are often allowed on the site. So on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, bot accounts get shut down very quickly. They want to make sure that humans are the ones submitting and upvoting content. But on Reddit, there's a lot of specific types of bots which are allowed. So bots can't be spam. And this means that bots that go around basically manipulating votes. So a bot, you could maybe have a bot that just goes around and automatically upvotes any post that has the word Trump in it. That would not be allowed because it's spamming the site, which it's not intended for. But you can use bots, are often used for auto moderation. So if you had a subreddit that you do not want people talking about politics in, you could have a bot that goes around and automatically deletes any comment that has the word Trump in it or Obama in it or any politician, and it just makes the moderation easier. And Reddit's rules say you are allowed to do this. To do that, of course, though, it has to be approved by the moderators. And there's also a lot of bots on the site that provide services in the comments. And so examples of these are Colorize Bot, which you can use in the comments. If you type in Colorize Bot on a image post that's in black and white, this bot will reply to your comment with an image that has been colorized. So it'll convert the black and white image to a color photo. There's also GIF Reversing Bot, which will reverse a video, so you can watch a video in reverse. There's a Metric System Bot, which you can use if someone posts something. Maybe they say, I live 10 miles away from that. then you can ask the metric system bot to just convert the 10 miles into kilometers. And so these are example of bots which are very prevalent on the site. So a lot of what Reddit is just there's a lot of bots that are used throughout the site, and these are allowed. But what makes Reddit very special is its communities, and each community, each subreddit, has its own specific content policies. So what might be allowed on one subreddit may not be allowed on a different subreddit. And each subreddit has volunteer moderators who determine the subreddit's policies. And these policies must still follow the site-wide content policy. So regardless of what the subreddit wants, they still have to follow the site's rules. So a subreddit can't say that it's going to maybe ignore the involuntary pornography rule. If that happened, the subreddit would likely get banned, or the moderator might be removed by site administrators. And so now I'm just going to talk about some examples of these content policies on different subreddits. So first I'm going to talk about r/pics. Obviously the post has to be a picture. On this subreddit you can't be posting text or videos. The whole point of the subreddit is just to post pictures. So on this one, they only allow you to post pictures. You also can't post screenshots. Here, no porn or gore is allowed. You're also not allowed to post personal information, any animated images, and no personal attacks, bigotry, or fighting words are allowed. And so a lot of, especially the larger subreddits, but even a lot of the smaller ones too, have specific rules that don't allow for bigotry, personal attacks, and whatnot, even though these technically don't violate the general site-wide rules. So there are actually subreddits where bigotry is allowed, which isn't a great thing, but it kind of goes in with Reddit having a very loose content policy and makes the site very different from sites like Facebook and Twitter, where a lot of bigoted posts would be automatically removed, regardless of the community it was posted in. Looking at the coronavirus subreddit, they have a different content policy. So here, everyone's expected to be civil, which basically includes not being bigoted, no personal attacks. Goes hand in hand with the previous rule I was just talking about on r/pics. You're not allowed to edit or sensationalize titles for news articles that you post. You're not allowed to have off-topic political discussion. The sources you use have to be reliable, so if you post to a source that isn't reliable, that's grounds for that post to be removed, or for a comment to be removed. Also, interestingly, no medical advice is allowed on this subreddit. This is because the moderators here don't want to be held responsible for bad medical advice that might be given on the site by other users. So to circumvent this, they just flat out ban all medical advice. And you're also not allowed to spread misinformation or encourage drama on this site. Then, looking at the Today I Learned subreddit, they also have a different content policy from the previous two. So the submissions have to be verifiable. So when you post a fact, you have to basically be able to verify that. You have to post the source that you got this information from, and it has to be reliable. Here, you're not allowed to post personal opinions, anecdotes, or subjective statements. And so this is very different than, for example, on the coronavirus subreddit. It might be very appropriate to post personal opinions about maybe some policies that you think should be enacted, or anecdotes of what you've been experiencing through this. But on the Today I Learned subreddit, these aren't appropriate for that subreddit, and as such, you're not allowed to do that. You're also not allowed to use recent sources, just because recent sources haven't had as much time to be verified or disproven. And again, this is in stark contrast to the coronavirus subreddit, where nearly all of the sources that you would post would be very recent, just because the whole coronavirus is a very recent pandemic, and there's not going to be sources from a year ago about the coronavirus because it hadn't started back then. You're also not allowed to post misleading claims, and on this subreddit, you have to begin your titles with TIL, which stands for Today I Learned. And so basically, as you can see, each subreddit has their own customized rules to make their community better. And each community has to decide for themselves what rules they want, how they want to conduct themselves, and whatnot. And this basically makes the site very diverse. You have some communities, like I was talking about earlier, that might even allow for things such as bigotry and whatnot. And you might have very rude subreddits that talk about stuff like this. You might have very sexist subreddits. But you also have on the site a lot of subreddits that are against those things. And most, in fact, are against those things and don't allow posting for that. But you have kind of variety. You have those that have that, those that don't. You have a lot of subreddits that are about politics, and on those, you're encouraged to talk about politics and to debate various issues and whatnot. But on a lot of subreddits, they don't allow you to talk about politics just because, for example, if you're on a subreddit like videos, they want to focus on just showing non-political videos. They don't want their community to turn into a political community, and a lot of times the easiest way to do that is to just ban anything that is political. So the censorship throughout the site really varies. The site-wide policies are fairly loose, but the subreddit-specific content policies usually are a lot more in-depth, and a lot of times can be even more restrictive than on other sites. So, for example, on Facebook, it has a lot looser content policy than the Today I Learned subreddit. Clearly on Facebook, you don't have to begin all of your posts with TIL or some other phrase. Also, you certainly are allowed to post personal opinions and anecdotes on Facebook, but on the Today I Learned community on Reddit, you aren't allowed to do that. But as a whole, on Reddit, going through all the different subreddits and whatnot, it generally has a more relaxed content policy than other websites. Now I want to talk about the moderators on Reddit. And so the moderators are people on Reddit who basically control what can be posted. They make the rules. They're responsible for making sure those rules are adhered to. And when someone creates a subreddit, they become the moderator for that subreddit. Now, as a moderator, you're a volunteer, so you're not paid, and it's kind of your job to uphold the rules and whatnot, but you are a volunteer. So if you want, you can remove yourself as a moderator and add someone else as a moderator. You can have multiple moderators. You can have moderators vote other moderators out and whatnot. And you'll often see that moderators change over time on a lot of subreddits just because it is a volunteer basis and it can take a lot of time, especially on bigger subreddits where you might be getting thousands of posts a day. It can be a lot of work to go through all of those and making sure that they are adhering to the content policy. Because ultimately it's the moderators who are responsible for enforcing the content policy. The users of a subreddit aren't responsible for that. They can report posts, but users aren't allowed to remove posts or comments. So it's up to the moderators to make sure that the rules are being followed. And the moderators also have to make sure that their subreddit is following the site-wide content policies. And if they don't do that, then they can risk being removed as a moderator or their whole subreddit being removed. And so now I want to talk about what privileges a moderator has in order to make sure these rules are being followed. So a moderator, first of all, determines what content is and isn't allowed on a subreddit, which I have talked about previously. And a moderator can remove posts that violate this. And technically, a moderator can remove any post. There's nowhere on Reddit that says a moderator can only remove things that violate that subreddit's content policy. there's nothing stopping a moderator from removing posts that they might even just disagree with, or they don't like for whatever reason, which can become kind of dangerous. But generally, most of the moderators, especially for the larger subs, do a good job of only removing content that has actually violated their policies. And usually, when you do have a moderator that is removing posts that aren't violating the content policies, users will complain, whether on that subreddit itself, or they might go to other subreddits and complain that the subreddit they were using is censoring people's posts unjustly. And this can lead to that moderator getting a lot of negative backlash, and other consequences can come with that. Moderators can also remove comments that are just the same as posts. Again, usually this is to remove things that are violating the content policy, but it can also be the moderators removing things they just disagree with, just like with the posts. And they can also ban users from the subreddit. So usually this happens when a user is continuously posting things that violate the content policy. It's usually just easier for the moderator at that point to ban the user rather than having to remove their posts and comments consistently. And so now I want to talk about the moderator feedback. So like I was saying, a lot of times moderators can abuse their power and can remove posts even if it isn't violating their subreddit's terms of use. And so users can request changes to the policy or to moderators that are removing things or banning users, for users who haven't been violating this policy. And users can do this by either messaging or communicating with other moderators of that subreddit. Users can do this by posting to other subreddits complaining about the moderator. And even users can complain to the administrators of the sites that a moderator is not moderating justly. And it can even go as far as users requesting the removal of a specific moderator. So on a lot of subreddits, there might be up to a dozen moderators, and usually with so many moderators, you're bound to have at least one moderator that is unpopular or hasn't been doing a very good job, or has been abusing their powers. And when this is the case, the users often complain to the other moderators to have this moderator removed. And this will happen a lot on the site, where moderators are removed for abusing their abilities. Users also can request to a moderator to unban them if they think that they were banned or had their posts or comments deleted unjustly. Sometimes it can honestly just be an accident. The moderator might have removed the wrong post, and usually they're pretty good about fixing this, but if they're not, again, the users can complain and have them removed. And if it gets bad enough, if the moderators aren't willing to remove a moderator, or if they aren't willing to change their policy, then users can go ahead and actually create a whole new subreddit with different moderators. So for example, if there was a subreddit, so say on the subreddit r/politics, if one of the moderators was removing every post that was deemed too progressive, and abusing their powers, then users could kind of protest and say, this subreddit is no longer fair, we don't like being a part of this community, we're going to create a new community. And they could maybe create a new subreddit called Fair Politics, and the new moderators of that subreddit could really focus on being more fair and allowing political views from everybody to be posted there. And then kind of natural selection plays its role, and users will choose to follow the subreddits that are more fair and have better moderators. So usually if there's a lot of poor moderation on a subreddit, it can lead to that subreddit, a lot of users just leaving that subreddit and not wanting to be a part of that community anymore. So there is a lot of stuff that encourages moderators to do a good job. And that leads to moderators usually taking community feedback. So on most subreddits, you do generally find that moderators listen to the community, they don't abuse their powers, and when they do, they're often removed by other moderators. Nonetheless, the way that moderation works on Reddit often leads to a lot of echo chambers. So a lot of subreddits, for example, since they're allowed to have any content policy they wish, a lot of subreddits don't allow voicing certain opinions. So, for example, there's a subreddit called The Donald, which is a subreddit for people who support U.S. President Donald Trump. And this subreddit does not allow people to post anything that is critical of Donald Trump. So they're not allowed to express opinions that are negative towards him. And this leads to the community being basically a echo chamber. And also, like I was saying earlier, regardless of the content guidelines, moderators can still block content they disagree with at will. So a lot of times on subreddits, they will have certain political ideas removed, even if they don't violate the terms. And it can lead to users with those opinions not being able to use that subreddit. So everyone on that subreddit ends up having similar opinions, and no real discourse can happen there. It just kind of becomes an echo chamber. And also a lot of times what you can see will happen, regardless of what moderators do, is users on a subreddit generally tend to have a certain opinions. So if a user posts something which might be different or might be an unpopular opinion compared to the rest of the people in the community, it'll often get downvoted. And this can happen even if that opinion, they could still support that opinion with research, and this happens when it's an opinion, not even just with facts. Surely if someone posts things that's not factual, it makes sense that it might be downvoted. But even people will downvote things just with opinions they disagree with. And then because of that, those posts get hidden deep down. And again, it discourages users with different opinions from going to that community then. And so again, it just kind of leads to a lot of echo chambers. Fortunately, Reddit, as I discussed earlier, does have different sorting options. So a lot of users will sort by new or by controversial to see all the opinions that are being expressed, even the ones that will get downvoted. But most users use the default sorting method, so these echo chambers are still a very big issue with the site. Now I want to talk about the admins of the site, which are different from the moderators. So the admins are actually employees of Reddit, and they're paid. They're responsible for upholding the content policy of the site. They are not responsible for upholding individual subreddits' content policies. So subreddits might be fairly loose on upholding their own content policies, but the admins are there to ensure that the general site content policy is being adhered by everyone. And the admins have all the same privileges as the moderators, but the admins have some additional privileges, in that the admins can also ban and quarantine entire subreddits. And this has happened in the past where subreddits have been seen continuously violating the content policy of Reddit, and the moderators were not doing enough to make sure this content was being deleted quick enough. And the admins had to eventually decide that they needed to ban the entire subreddit. And what's interesting is that admins are a lot more influenced by advertisers than moderators are. So moderators are volunteers, so really their only interest is in making their community as best as it can be. They don't make any money, so to them, they don't care what advertisers think of their community. But this is different for the admins. They work for Reddit, and Reddit's a company, and it has to make money. And Reddit makes money by having advertisements. And so the admins have to make sure that advertisers are happy. If Reddit allowed anything to be posted, a lot of advertisers would not be comfortable with advertising on the site. And so over time, admins have added a lot of new rules when advertisers have become unhappy. So for example, the subreddit The Fappening was started after years ago, as many of you will probably remember. iCloud had a leak for a lot of celebrities, and a lot of celebrities' nudes were released online. And this subreddit was started for people to post those pictures of celebrities that were leaked. And a lot of advertisers were really unhappy with this. While it wasn't illegal to post these images, a lot of people and advertisers saw it as very immoral because the celebrities never consented to having their nude pictures being seen by everyone. And so Reddit eventually added the rule that no unintentional pornography was allowed on the site. And ultimately, while this still happened a lot before then, it really wasn't the admins caring about the morality of it. It wasn't until the advertisers started complaining that the admins cared to add this new rule. Later, the subreddit Fat People Hate became a very popular subreddit, and this subreddit was a community dedicated basically to just criticizing and being really mean to people who were overweight. People would post pictures of overweight people and would basically just say how much they hated these people, how they wanted them to die. And it wasn't being civil. It wasn't just posting a picture and saying, there's an obesity epidemic going on. We need to work on people being healthier. Instead, it was people just being mean and bullying people who were overweight. And this became a very popular subreddit that it gained a lot of media attention, and advertisers started saying that they didn't want their ads shown on Reddit because of subreddits like this, which had so much hate in them. And this led to Reddit banning a lot of these hate subreddits, most notably Fat People Hate, but there was also about a dozen other subreddits that they also banned that were similar hate subreddits. Another controversial subreddit which ended up being banned after advertisers became unhappy was r/deepfakes, and this was a subreddit dedicated to a new artificial intelligence technology which allowed people to get a video and replace the faces in the video with anyone else they would like. So what people started doing is they would get pornographic videos and they would replace the faces using this artificial intelligence with faces of celebrities. And this artificial intelligence was very advanced, and it was practically indistinguishable seeing the videos of it. It truly looked like it was actually the celebrities in the videos. And this, again, was seen as immoral by most people and by a lot of advertisers, and they threatened to take their ads off Reddit if they didn't remove these types of videos. And so Reddit went ahead and added the rule that you're not allowed to submit anything that's impersonating somebody else. And they banned all deepfakes on the site. And another thing that has happened, which wasn't actually banning a subreddit, but led to quarantining, which I'll go into a bit later, is the subreddit The Donald, which I talked about earlier, is a subreddit for people who support the United States President Donald Trump. And this subreddit was pretty infamous on the site for having a lot of users who were very bigoted, would post a lot of very bigoted and sexist, racist posts. There were a lot of people who were arguing that people should be going out and doing violent actions towards groups of people they disagreed with. And essentially, advertisers saw how nasty these people were being, and these posts were very popular and had a lot of upvotes and were appearing near the top of the front page of Reddit, just because there are so many people in the United States who do support Donald Trump that these posts were able to get a lot of fame, and it gathered a lot of media attention, and a lot of advertisers, again, threatened to stop advertising on the site. And Reddit, in this case, didn't want to ban the whole subreddit because it would also look bad to more conservative advertisers who were pro-Donald Trump if they were seen banning an entire subreddit for the current president. And so what they did instead is they introduced this new thing called quarantining, which is different than banning. And so when a subreddit becomes quarantined, um, advertisements are not shown on the site or on that subreddit. So no advertisements are shown on the Donald. But people are still allowed to go and view posts from there. However, these posts do not show up on the Reddit front page. So if you go and view, there's something called r/all on Reddit, which shows posts from every subreddit. You can see basically all the posts on all of Reddit. But when you go here, no posts are shown from any quarantined sub. So if you go onto the site and you're not logged in, for example, you're shown r/all, and you won't be shown any of this quarantined content. Further, if you do want to go ahead and view this content, you have to actually manually consent to viewing the content, just so that you know that you are going to be seeing a lot of bigoted, racist, and sexist and whatnot stuff. And this kind of solved a lot of the stuff. But a lot of these changes, essentially, that were made to Reddit had to do with not so much the ethics that the admins faced. Going back in time, the admins usually have said they want to keep censorship to a minimum. Originally, Reddit wanted to allow all content that was legal, so certainly there still is illegal content that no site is allowed to show. But Reddit essentially wanted to allow all content that was legal. But over time, they've been kind of threatened by advertisers. And as the site's gotten more popular and whatnot, Reddit has become more strict on what policies they enforce. Now, going off on a completely different topic, I want to talk about the activism that occurs on Reddit. And so there's a lot of different subreddits on Reddit for various different social issues. So, as I've talked about before, there's the Hong Kong subreddit, which is for people to talk about the Hong Kong protests and all the democracy issues going on in Hong Kong. There's also r/the environment, which is about various environmental issues. There's r/bad cop no donut, which is about raising awareness about police brutality. And there's loads of subreddits like these that are about activism, raising awareness, and whatnot. But what's unique about Reddit is there's a lot of subreddits dedicated to actually participation in these activisms and whatnot. And I think a lot of this is because the site is very anonymous. It relies on people being, or it basically leads to people being a lot more adamant for proof. And also people not being as satisfied with just being informed and raising awareness. People actually more demand real life changes. And so I think you see this on a lot of other social media sites with activism. You primarily see it with raising awareness. You see a lot of posts, like for example, during the Amazon rainforest fires, you saw a lot of posts talking about how bad the fires were and whatnot. But you often very infrequently saw people actually doing something about these issues or offering advice what you can do to help these issues, besides occasionally offering maybe a link to somewhere you can go donate money. But you often didn't really see a lot of stuff that was invoking social change from these other social medias. But on Reddit, people really require a lot more stuff like photographic proof that users are actually going out and doing something to change something in order for them to upvote that comment or post. So posts of people going out and actually making a change are going to get a lot more upvotes than people who are just saying, here's this issue if you didn't know about it, or just saying, everyone knows this issue, it's really bad, but not actually doing anything about it. And there's also a lot of like signed petitions on Reddit where they have users go out and sign petitions. But all this stuff kind of has to go with, on Reddit, people really want more proof that people are actually going out and doing things rather than just spreading awareness. And I think this leads to a lot more impact than other social media sites have. When you actually have users going out and doing something rather than just raising awareness, I think we've grown accustomed to. We think we're helping by just raising awareness by sending out tweets or posting on Facebook about stuff like the Amazon fires and whatnot. But usually when we see these things, we're already well informed about the issue of what's going on. And what really needs to be done instead is people going out and actually doing something and making a change. And I think Reddit does a good job of doing this. And so now I'm just going to talk about a few examples on the site of when this has happened. So the first one is r/trash tag. And this is a subreddit where users submit before and after photos of picking up trash. So here's an example in, I believe this was in Thailand, but I could be wrong. The top picture shows a before picture, and the bottom shows an after picture. So the user who posted this actually went out. It might have just been them individually. It might have been them with a group of people. But regardless, they went out and cleaned up this public space themselves. And so this community actually motivated this person or group to go out and actually make a change. Further, on this subreddit, people can submit places that need cleaning. So if other users are interested in helping out, they can find places to go to help clean up and make an impact. And the whole community really encourages other users to participate and to go out and clean up trash themselves. And if people actually want to be in this community, then it kind of relies on them going out and doing this. It's not enough to go on this community and just talk about, oh, littering is bad, or oh, there's a really bad issue of trash accumulating in third world countries or in urban areas. That's not enough. So if you're on this community and you post something like that, you're not going to get very many upvotes, or you might even get comments saying, we all know that already. You need to actually go out and make a change yourself. And so in this community, I think it's better than simply discussing the issues. Instead, people are actually going out and making a change. Another subreddit about activism and actually going out and doing stuff is r/anti-consumption. And this in this subreddit is basically about posts describing ways to reduce consumption. It calls out companies that are producing excess waste, a lot of times through packaging, and it even a lot of times encourages boycotts of these companies. So rather than just saying, oh, it sucks that these companies are wasting so much, instead it'll call out and say, hey, this company here is producing a lot of excess garbage and trash and whatnot that they don't need to be doing. We should boycott them. Instead, here are other alternative companies that we can be supporting that are doing a better job of reducing their garbage and trash. There's also a lot of posts on here of people showing how they themselves are reducing consumption, not just in reducing how much trash they have, but there'll be posts saying, oh, maybe instead of going out and buying this thing I really didn't need, I decided I didn't need it, and you don't need it too. And just people encouraging other people to consume less and to basically help the environment by consuming less. And so on this subreddit, they'll talk about ways that the users can reduce their consumption, what the users are doing themselves to reduce consumption. And the whole community basically is, if you're part of the community, you're just going to be really encouraged to reduce your consumption, which again, I think is a lot better than just discussing the issue we have in society where people are consuming a lot of things that they don't need to be. And certainly it is something that needs to be discussed, but I think this subreddit is great in that it goes beyond that and actually is really encouraging the users to go out and do something. And the users of this subreddit are posting pictures showing that they actually are reducing their consumption. And so these are just two examples of the activism on Reddit that I think is really great on the site. Um, and so that's basically wraps up my presentation. So in summary, I talked about what is Reddit, and it's a social media site that's very unique in a lot of ways. I think the anonymity plays the largest role in how the site plays out, as well as the site being divided into various subreddits. I think those two factors, more than anything, make the site what it is. I also discussed the censorship on Reddit and how this censorship can be abused, but also how the censorship is really a lot more decentralized than other social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter, where Facebook and Twitter employs a large number of employees that their job is just to go through and censor things that are violating the policies, whereas on Reddit, they rely on a lot of volunteer moderators primarily. And finally, I talked about activism on Reddit and how Reddit has done a really good job of doing some good in the world through, for example, trash tag and through anti-consumption for the environment. And certainly there's a lot of other activism that's gone on in Reddit as well. So thank you for listening to my presentation, and have a good day.